Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I'm Michael, 36, a high school history teacher in Portland, Oregon, where the drizzle of autumn 2024 seemed to mirror the quiet unraveling of my life. For 14 years, 10 married, for before that Sarah and I had built a life that felt like a warm, familiar quilt stitched with shared dreams, late-night talks, and a love I thought was bulletproof. Our home in the Alberta Arts District was a cozy chaos of her yoga mats, my history books, and the succulents we'd tried and mostly failed to keep alive. Mornings were our ritual. I'd grind coffee beans, the nutty aroma filling our tiny kitchen, while she scrambled eggs, her laughter echoing as I butchered the pronunciation of some obscure historical figure like Thucydides. Evenings, we'd walk our scruffy terrier, Rufus, through the neighborhood, his leash swinging as we debated whether to try a new brewery or stick to our favorite dive bar. The Rusty Lantern, with its sticky tables and neon glow. It was a good life, one I cherished, one I thought we both did. But quilts can fray, and trust, if learned, can erode under the weight of secrets you never saw coming. Sarah was a physical therapist, her hands skilled at mending broken bodies, her smile a balm for anyone's bad day. She'd come home from the clinic with stories of patients, a marathon runner with a torn ankle, an elderly woman regaining strength after a fall, a teenager learning to walk again, for a car accident, her voice bright with purpose. I loved her passion. The way her hazel eyes lit up when she talked about helping someone reclaim their mobility. I'd listen, grading papers at our kitchen table, a reclaimed cedar piece we'd found at a flea market, and feel like we were a team, building a life together. Our home was a reflection of us, her abstract paintings on the walls, vibrant swirls of blues and yellows that seemed to dance in the light, my shelves crammed with biographies of Lincoln, Cleopatra, and lesser-known figures like Sojourner Truth and Rufus chewed-up toys scattered like landmines across the hardwood floors. We'd talk about the future kids, a house with a yard, maybe a trip to Italy to see the Colosseum, a dream sparked by my obsession with Roman history. I thought we were aligned, our paths converging toward a shared horizon. But paths can diverge, and I was too busy looking forward to notice the fork in the road. The cracks started small, like a hairline fracture in a bone you don't notice until it breaks. Around April, Sarah began working late, citing a new clinic opening in southeast Portland that demanded extra hours. She'd come home after dark, her hair slightly messy, her cheeks flushed, blaming staff meetings or patient consults. Her phone, once left on the counter with its cracked screen flashing notifications, stayed in her pocket now, or turned face down on the table. She'd smile at texts, her eyes lighting up in a way that used to be reserved for me. Then say, just a colleague with a dumb joke. I didn't push. I trusted her. Trust was the bedrock of our marriage, the thing that made us us. I'd built my world around that trust, believing it was mutual, unshakable. I saw trust as a constant, like gravity, always there, holding us together. But trust, if come to realize, can be a fog, obscuring truths you're not ready to face. By May, the changes were harder to ignore. Sarah started wearing her hair differently, loose curls cascading over her shoulders instead of her usual messy bun, as if she were trying to reinvent herself. She bought new clothes, flowy blouses in vibrant blues and deep purples, fitted jeans that hugged her curves, not her typical scrubs or yoga pants. She'd come home smelling faintly of sandalwood, a scent I didn't recognize, nothing like the lavender lotion she'd used since we met at a community art fair 14 years ago. It'd been volunteering, handing out flyers for a local charity, when I saw her selling her paintings, her energy a spark that lit up my quiet world. She'd teased me about my nervous stammer, then painted a quick sketch of me on a napkin, her smile bold and warm. I'd fallen for her then, and that memory was a touchstone, a reminder of why we worked. But now, that energy felt directed elsewhere, and the touchstone felt like a weight. Her wardrobe wasn't the only change. Her stories about work grew vague, missing the vivid details she used to share about patients' progress or clinic gossip. She'd talk about a new coworker, Liam, a sports therapist who joined the team, but her voice would shift to casual, to quick when his name came up. I'd nod, sip my coffee, and tell myself it was nothing. I was swamped at school, grading essays on the American Revolution, coaching the debate team, and prepping for summer curriculum planning. My days were a blur of lesson plans, student questions, and late-night grading sessions, my laptop glowing in the dark. I tried to make history come alive for kids more interested in their phones. Maybe I was projecting stress, seeing shadows where there were none. But doubt is a seed, and once it's planted, it grows fast, its roots curling into every corner of your mind. June brought more signs, each one a pebble in the pile building in my gut. Sarah started going to team meetings that ran late, sometimes not coming home until after 10. She'd breeze in, her cheeks flushed, talking about brainstorming sessions or client consults, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Rufus would greet her with his usual enthusiasm, tail wagging like a metronome, but she'd pat him absently, her mind elsewhere. Her phone buzzed constantly now, and she'd silence it with a quick glance, her fingers moving too fast to be casual. I'd lie awake at night, her breathing soft beside me, wondering who she was texting, who was making her smile like that. I'd stare at the ceiling, the glow of streetlights filtering through our blinds, and try to quiet the questions. Was she just busy? Was the clinic really that demanding? Or was someone else pulling her away? I started overanalyzing everything, my historian's brain turning our marriage into a primary source to dissect. I'd replay our conversations, searching for clues, analyzing her tone like he'd analyze a letter from a Civil War soldier. Had she always been this distant, or was I just noticing it now? Had I missed something fundamental, some need I hadn't met? I thought back to our early years, when we'd met at that art fair, where she'd been selling her paintings and he'd been volunteering, drawn to her easy laugh and the way she saw beauty in everything. We'd stayed up all night, that first date, at a 24-hour diner, talking about our dreams, hers to open her own clinic, mine to teach history in a way that made kids care. We'd been so in sync, so alive together, sneaking kisses in the rain, planning a future that felt infinite. We'd spend weekends exploring Portland's markets, buying weird trinkets like a vintage compass or a hand-painted mug, or sharing a food cart taco, laughing as sauce dripped down our chins. I remembered the night we got Rufus, a rescue pup with a crooked tail, and how we'd laughed as he chewed our shoes, his tiny paws tripping over our hardwood floors. When had that joy faded? I recalled moments when she'd seemed restless last Christmas, when she'd stared out the window during dinner, or the spring before, when she'd talked about feeling stuck in her 30s. I'd listened, offered support, suggested a weekend getaway to the Oregon coast, but she'd brushed it off, saying it was just work stress. Maybe I hadn't really heard her. Maybe I'd been too focused on my own world, my students, my lessons, my debate team to see her drifting. July was a turning point. The signs allowed to ignore. Sarah started mentioning a new project, a wellness program for athletes, but the details were hazy. No client names, no clear timeline, just vague references to collaboration with Liam. She'd come home later, her eyes sparkling with a fire I hadn't seen in months. But when I asked about her day, she'd deflect, talking about abstract concepts like holistic healing or finding her purpose. I wanted to believe her, to chalk it up to her passion for her work, but the gaps in her stories grew wider. I'd find myself staring at her yoga mat, left untouched in the corner, or her work bag, which never seemed to hold the charts or notes she used to bring home. Rufus would nudge my hand, sensing my unease, his brown eyes steady where mine were not. I'd take him for walks alone, the Portland streets quiet, the drizzle soaking my jacket, and wonder if I was losing her. The city, with its murals of dreamlike creatures and food carts wafting spices, felt like a stranger now, its vibrancy mocking my growing sense of isolation. I'd pass the street artists on Alberta Street, their chalk drawings blurring in the rain, and think of Sarah's paintings, how she used to show me every brushstroke, her eyes bright with excitement. When had she stopped sharing that with me? I tried to bridge the gap, to reconnect without accusing her. One evening, over dinner, salmon I'd overcooked in my distraction, the kitchen smelling of burnt herbs. I asked about her project, about Liam, hoping for details that would ease my mind. "It's going well," she said. Her voice clipped, her eyes on her plate. "Just a lot of planning." I pressed, gently, asking who else was involved, what the program entailed. She deflected, talking about a new patient, a cyclist with a knee injury, but her words felt rehearsed, like a script she'd memorized. I nodded, my appetite gone, the salmon dry and tasteless. I wanted to ask more, to demand the truth, but fear held me back. What if I was wrong? What if I was right? Either way, something was shifting, and I wasn't ready to face it. I'd clear the table, Rufus watching me with his soulful eyes, and feel the weight of our unspoken tension, a chasm growing between us. The first real blow came in August. I'd taken a day off to prep for the new school year, organizing my classroom with maps of ancient empires, Mesopotamia, Rome, the Han Dynasty, and timelines of the American Revolution. I'd spent hours pinning up posters, a Moribus Code, the Declaration of Independence, a portrait of Harriet Tubman, trying to make history feel alive for my students, to spark the curiosity I'd felt as a kid reading about lost civilizations. Sarah said she was working a double shift, but when I called the clinic to ask if she wanted me to bring her lunch, a small gesture to show I cared, the receptionist said she'd left early. My stomach dropped, a cold weight settling in. I drove home, telling myself it was a misunderstanding, but found her car parked 2 blocks from our house, near a coffee shop we never went to, a trendy spot called Brew and Bloom with fairy lights and overpriced lattes. I didn't go in. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing. Maybe she was meeting a friend. Maybe it was a client. But the seed of doubt had sprouted, and I couldn't unsee her car, parked like a secret, a betrayal hidden in plain sight. I didn't confront her that day. I'm not the guy who storms in, demanding answers. I'm the guy who dissects historical events, weighing causes and effects, piecing together motives from dusty texts. I needed evidence, not assumptions, but the suspicion gnawed at me, a constant hum beneath my thoughts. Over the next few weeks, I became hypervigilant, hating myself for it. I noticed her clean scrubs despite long shifts, the way she'd leave her phone in her bag instead of on the counter, the new earrings she wore, small silver hoops, a gift she said was from a patient. I started checking her phone when she was in the shower, each glance a betrayal of who I thought I was. The texts were vague but damning. "Can't wait to see you. Meet me at the park." No name, just a number, but I knew. It was Liam. My heart pounded as I scrolled, each message a confirmation of what I'd feared. I'd put the phone back, my hands shaking, and pretend everything was normal when she emerged, her hair damp, her smile forced. I started questioning everything, my mind a battlefield of doubt and denial. I think back to our early days, when we'd spend weekends exploring Portland's markets, buying weird trinkets like a vintage compass or a hand-painted mug, or sharing a food cart taco, laughing as sauce dripped down our chins. I remembered the night we got Rufus, a rescue pup with a crooked tail, and how we'd laughed as he chewed our shoes, his tiny paws tripping over our hardwood floors. I thought of our wedding, in a forest clearing outside the city, Sarah in a lace dress, her vows a melody of promises to love you through every storm. Had she meant it then, or was it always fragile, a promise waiting to break? I'd lie awake, Rufus curled at the foot of the bed, and wonder if he'd failed her. Had I been too absorbed in my work, too comfortable in our routine? I'd always prided myself on being steady, reliable, the guy who showed up. But maybe steady wasn't enough. Maybe she needed more, a spark, a challenge, something I hadn't given her. I tried to understand her side, to see the world through her eyes. Sarah had always been driven, her work at the clinic not just a job but a calling. She'd talk about her patients with a reverence that made me proud, about how each step they took was a victory she shared. But lately, she'd seemed restless, her passion tinged with frustration. I remembered a conversation last winter, over hot cocoa by our fireplace, when she'd talked about wanting to do more, to create a program that blended physical therapy with mental wellness. I'd listened, nodded, but my mind was half on a stack of essays waiting to be graded. Had I dismissed her dreams? Had I failed to see the weight of her ambitions? I thought of the times she'd come home exhausted, not just from work, but from something deeper, a yearning I hadn't understood. She'd sit at the table, sketching absent-mindedly, her drawings darker, more angular than her usual vibrant swirls. I'd thought it was a phase, a creative shift, but maybe it was a sign, a cry for something I wasn't giving her. Work suffered, my lessons were flat, my students noticed my distraction. My debate team captain, Maya, a sharp junior with a knack for argumentation, asked if I was okay. "You seem off, Mr. Carter," she said, her eyes searching. I brushed it off, said it was just the end of term, but I wasn't okay. I was unraveling, my life a puzzle with missing pieces. I'd grade papers late into the night, the words blurring as my mind wandered to Sarah, to Liam, to the life I thought we had. My colleagues noticed Tujan, the English teacher, brought me coffee one morning, her smile gentle. "You look tired, Michael. Everything all right at home?" I lied, said it was just grading, but the truth was a weight I couldn't carry alone. I'd sit in the staff room, staring at my coffee, replaying every moment I'd missed, the late nights, the new earrings, the way she'd stopped humming while cooking. I'd think of our early days, when we'd dance in our tiny kitchen to Marvin Gaye, or drive to the coast on a whim, watching waves crash under a stormy sky. Had I stopped being that man, the one who surprised her, who made her laugh? One night, I couldn't hold it in. We were in the living room, Rufus sprawled between us, a documentary on ancient Rome playing unwatched on the TV. The room smelled of the lavender candle she loved, but the air was heavy, thick with unspoken words. "Who's Liam?" I asked, my voice steadier than my heart. She froze, her hand pausing on Rufus' fur, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Just a coworker," she said, too quickly, her voice a pitch too high. "We're working on a new rehab program together." She didn't look at me, and that's when I knew. It wasn't the lie, it was the way she told it, practiced, like she'd been waiting for the question. My chest tightened, the air too thin. I wanted to push, to demand the truth, but fear stopped me. What if I was right? What if I was wrong? Either way, something was breaking, and I wasn't ready to face the pieces. I should have confronted her, but I didn't. I wanted to believe her, to cling to the life we'd built. Instead, I watched closer, my suspicion a poison seeping into every moment. I noticed how she'd come home with her hair slightly mussed, how she'd talk about her day, but skip over ours, leaving gaps in her stories I couldn't fill. I'd replay our conversations, searching for clues, dissecting her words like a primary source document. Had she always been this guarded, or was I just noticing it now? I thought of moments when she'd seemed distant last Christmas, when she'd stared out the window during dinner, or the spring before, when she'd talked about feeling stuck. I'd thought it was work stress, offered to take her away for a weekend, but she'd brushed it off. Had I missed her cry for help? September brought the breaking point. I was home early, grading essays on the couch, Rufus snoring at my feet, his warmth a small comfort. Sarah had said she was at a staff training, but her yoga mat was still in the corner, untouched, her work bag empty of the charts she usually carried. On impulse, I checked her laptop, left open on the kitchen table, her email logged in. I don't know what I expected, maybe nothing, maybe a confirmation of my worst fears. There it was, a thread with Liam, the sports therapist. The emails were raw, unguarded talk of secret meetups at Laurelhurst Park near the clinic, stolen lunches at a bistro in northeast Portland, called the Olive Branch, feelings she'd never shared with me. One line hit like a punch. "You make me feel like him enough, like I don't have to be perfect." I read it again, each word a knife. 10 years, and she felt enough with someone else. The emails painted a vivid, devastating picture. They'd met at a clinic fundraiser in March, an event she'd asked me to attend, but he'd skipped, to buried in grading midterms. What started as professional banter shared patients, rehab techniques turned into lunches at the Olive Branch, then walks in Laurelhurst Park, then moments she described as electric. She wrote about feeling alive with him, about how he saw her as more than a therapist or a wife, how he made her laugh in a way she hadn't in years. There were details that haunted me: a specific bench by the park's pond where they'd sat, a playlist had made her with indie folk songs, a moment when she realized she was falling for him. She described a day they'd spent at a farmer's market, buying fresh peaches and talking about their dreams, a scene so familiar it felt stolen from our life. I read until my vision blurred, until my chest ached with a pain I couldn't name. I thought of our life, our wedding in that forest clearing, her in a lace dress, promising forever, our first apartment, where we'd danced to old soul records, the nights we'd planned a future with kids and a bigger house. Had it all been a lie? I sat there, the laptop screen glowing in the dim room, my world collapsing pixel by pixel. I thought of every moment we'd shared, every promise we'd made. Our first date, at a food cart pod, where she'd teased me for spilling sauce on my shirt. Our honeymoon in Vancouver, where we'd gotten lost in Stanley Park, laughing until we couldn't breathe. The night we adopted Rufus, his tiny paws tripping over our hardwood floors. The time we'd camped in the Columbia River Gorge, waking up to a sunrise that painted the cliffs gold, her sketching the view while I made coffee over a fire. Had I been enough then? Or had I always been lacking, a placeholder until someone better came along? I wanted to blame her, to hate her, but part of me wondered if I'd failed her, if I had been too steady, too predictable, too blind to her needs. I thought about Sarah's perspective, trying to piece together why she'd turned to Liam. She'd always been the vibrant one, the one who brought color to my structured world. Her paintings were a testament to that bold, chaotic, full of life. But lately, her art had changed, the colors darker, the lines sharper, as if reflecting an inner turmoil I hadn't seen. She'd talked about feeling trapped, not by me, but by the life we'd built, the routines that had become our default. I remembered a night last fall, when we'd sat on our porch, the air crisp with the scent of fallen leaves, and she'd talked about wanting to break free, to do something bold, like start her own practice. I'd listened, but my mind was half on a lecture I was preparing, and it offered platitudes instead of real support. Had that been the moment she started to drift? Or was it earlier, when he'd stopped asking about her dreams, assuming they were the same as mine? I thought of the times she'd come home quiet, her smile forced, and he'd chalked it up to a long day. Maybe she'd been reaching out, and I'd missed it, too caught up in my own world to notice. When Sarah came home, I was still on the couch, her laptop open. I didn't yell, I couldn't. I was too broken, like a book with its pages torn out. "Who's Liam?" I asked, holding up the screen, her face drained of color, her keys slipping from her hand, clattering on the floor. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, tears welling. "It just did." She sat across from me, her hands trembling, and told me enough to shatter me. Liam was more than a coworker. They'd been meeting 4 months, first for work, then 4 lunches, then 4 things she couldn't fully explain. She said she loved me, but felt trapped, like our life was a routine she couldn't escape. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to hurt you." But she had, and the hurt was a living thing, clawing at my insides. I asked questions I didn't want answers to: when, where, why. She answered in fragments: a kiss in May by the park's pond, a confession in July at the olive branch, a night they'd stayed late at the park, talking under the stars about their lives, their fears. She swore it wasn't physical beyond that, but the emotional betrayal was worse. She'd given her heart to someone else, and I hadn't seen it coming. I sat there, numb, as she cried, her words a blur. I wanted to hate her, to scream, to throw something, but all I could feel was emptiness. I thought of the life we'd built, the late night talks about history and healing, the walks with Rufus, the way she'd tease me about my terrible puns. I thought of the future we'd planned, the kids we'd named in Jest Eleanor for a girl, Theo for a boy, the house we'd dreamed of with a garden for Rufus to dig in. Had it all been a lie? Or had I been so focused on my own world, my students, my lessons, that I'd missed her slipping away? I wanted to ask why she didn't talk to me, why she didn't tell me she was unhappy, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just sat there, the rain pounding outside, mirroring the storm inside me. We tried to fix it. Therapy once a week, in a quiet office with a therapist named Dr. Ellis, a woman with a calm voice and sharp questions. She pushed us to be honest, to peel back the layers of our pain. Sarah admitted she'd felt invisible, like her identity had been swallowed by her marriage, by her role as a therapist. She talked about her 30s, about feeling lost, about needing to rediscover herself. She said Liam saw her in a way I hadn't, made her feel alive, like she didn't have to be perfect. I listened, my heart aching, as she described a version of herself I hadn't seen, a woman yearning for freedom, for a spark she felt we'd lost. I admitted he'd been distracted, to focused on my students, my debate team, my routine. I'd thought our life was enough, that our love was a given, a constant like the tides. I'd missed her restlessness, her late-night sighs, her talk of wanting more. I'd thought it was work stress, offered to take her away for a weekend to Cannon Beach, but she'd brushed it off, saying she just needed time. Had I been too dismissive, too comfortable in our predictability? We tried date nights, forcing smiles at our old haunts, like the Rusty Lantern, where we'd once shared beers and dreams, plotting trips to far-off places like Kyoto or Rome. We'd sit across from each other, the jukebox playing Tom Waits, and try to talk, but the air was thick with betrayal. I'd watch her sip her beer, her movements careful, and wonder if she was thinking of Liam, of the park, of the moment she'd described in her emails. I'd try to talk about our future, about the trips we'd planned, the house we'd wanted, but the words felt hollow, like a lesson plan that didn't connect with the class. We made promises to communicate, to rebuild, to try. But every time I looked at her, I saw Liam's name, her words about feeling enough. I'd wake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment he'd missed, the late shifts, the new earrings, the way she'd stopped calling me babe. I'd see her yoga mat, untouched, and wonder if Liam had inspired her to start running instead, if he was part of the new her, the one I didn't know. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend easily. The pieces are too jagged, the gaps too wide. The therapy sessions were grueling, a battlefield of emotions neither of us was equipped to navigate. Sarah cried often, her guilt a heavy shadow, her face crumpling as she talked about the pain she'd caused. I wanted to comfort her, to be the husband I'd always been, the one who held her after a bad day, who made her laugh with bad history puns. But I couldn't. My anger was quiet, but constant, a low hum beneath every word. I'd catch myself staring at her, searching for the woman I'd married, the one who'd laughed with me at food carts, who'd painted my portrait on a whim, her brushstrokes quick and sure. Was she still there? Or had Liam taken her too? I'd ask myself if I failed her, if my focus on teaching, on stability, had pushed her away. Dr. Ellis said I hadn't, that Sarah made a choice, but self-blame is a hard habit to break. It dissects our marriage, searching for the moment it went wrong. Was it the long hours it spent grading, staying late to help a struggling student, the way he'd stopped surprising her with little gestures, like the time he'd hidden a love note in her yoga bag, a silly poem that made her laugh 4 days? Or was it her, needing something I could never give, a sense of freedom, a spark I couldn't match? I started noticing the small things. I'd ignored the way she'd stopped wearing her wedding ring to avoid getting it dirty at work, the way she'd leave her paintings covered, as if hiding them from me. I'd think about our early days, when she'd show me every brushstroke, her eyes bright with excitement, asking for my thoughts. I'd never been an artist, but I'd loved her passion, loved being part of her process, even if my feedback was just "it's beautiful" or "I love the colors." When had that stopped? I remembered a night last year, when she'd talked about opening her own clinic, about making a mark in the world. It nodded, supportive, but distracted, my mind on a debate tournament where my team was prepping for regionals. Had that been the moment she started to drift? Or was it earlier, when we'd settled into our routines, when he'd stopped planning spontaneous dates, like the time we'd driven to the coast to watch a storm, the waves crashing as we huddled under a blanket, laughing at the rain. I'd thought our love was enough, that our history would carry us through. But love, if learned, needs tending, like a lesson plan that needs constant revision to stay relevant. Sarah's perspective haunted me too. In therapy, she talked about feeling like she'd lost herself, like her identity had been swallowed by our marriage, by her role as a therapist. She described moments of doubt, of wondering if she was enough not just for me, but for herself. She said Liam made her feel seen, not as a wife or a healer, but as a woman with dreams, fears, and flaws. I listened, my heart aching, as she described a version of herself I hadn't seen, a woman yearning for freedom, for a spark she felt we'd lost. I wanted to argue, to say he'd always seen her, but had I? I thought of the times he'd come home late, my mind on a student's essay or a debate strategy, and barely asked about her day. I thought of the nights we'd sat in silence, me grading, her sketching, the space between us growing without me noticing. Had I taken her for granted, assumed our love was a given, like a fact in a history book? It prided myself on being steady, but maybe steady had become stagnant, a routine that stifled her. By November, we separated. I moved into a small apartment near the school, a one-bedroom with bare walls and a view of a parking lot. The hum of traffic a constant reminder of my solitude. Sarah kept our house, Rufus, her life. I kept the pain, a constant shadow that followed me everywhere. The apartment was too quiet. The absence of Rufus snores a void I couldn't fill. He'd cook dinner for one pasta or stir-fry, meals we used to make together, the kitchen sterile without a mess of yoga gear and patient charts. I'd find relics of our life, a ticket stub from a concert we'd seen, a note she'd left in my briefcase saying you're my favorite nerd, and the hurt would flood back, sharp and raw. I threw myself into teaching, structuring lessons on the Civil War with a precision I couldn't apply to my life. I'd stand at the front of my classroom, explaining the Battle of Gettysburg, and lose myself in the details, troop movements, strategies, consequences, because history was easier to understand than my own heart. I started running along the Willamette River, the water a steady companion, each step away to outrun my thoughts. Each mile was a step away from the past, but the past clung to me, stubborn and heavy. Friends tried to help. Jeanne brought me coffee at school, her smile gentle but probing. You're not yourself, Michael. Talk to me. He'd shrug, say it was just the school year, but she knew better. She'd invite me to trivia nights at a local pub, where he'd sit with her and other teachers, half listening to questions about pop culture or science. My mind on Sarah. My brother, Tom, called from Chicago, urging me to visit, promising Cubs games and deep dish pizza. I couldn't face the questions, the pity in his voice. My debate team kids rallied to Maya, organized a pizza party after a tournament, her way of cheering me up. She'd hand me a slice, pepperoni glistening, and say, "You're the best coach, Mr. Carter. Don't forget that." Their support was a lifeline, but their sympathy, however well-meaning, felt like pity, and pity stung almost as much as Sarah's betrayal. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal, it was the aftermath. The silence of my apartment, the absence of Rufus' warmth, the way my mornings felt empty without her laughter. I'd walk past the Rusty Lantern and see us there, sharing a beer, planning our next adventure, a hike in the gorge, a weekend in Seattle. He'd drive past the clinic, my heart pounding, then curse myself for caring. I'd check her social media, see a new poster photo of her with Rufus, caption my constant and spiral into questions I couldn't answer. Was she still with Liam? Were they building a life together? Did she ever miss me? I saw Sarah once, in January, at a grocery store in northeast Portland. She was buying avocados, her hair in those new curls, her cart filled with the organic brands we used to buy together. She looked lighter, like the weight of our marriage had lifted, her smile soft as she checked her phone. For a moment, I wanted to run to her, to ask if she was happy, if Liam was worth it, if she ever thought of the life we'd had. I didn't. I turned away, my heart a knot, and left with my half-empty basket, the fluorescent lights harsh above me. Rebuilding is slow. A lesson in patience I'm still learning. Running helps. Each mile a small victory. I'd run until my lungs burned. The river's rhythm drowning out my darker thoughts. The Portland skyline fading into dusk. Teaching grounds me my students' questions. Their debates remind me life goes on. I'd stand in my classroom, explaining the Emancipation Proclamation, and see their faces light up with curiosity, a reminder that I still had something to give. I joined a book club, met people who don't know my story, who see me as Michael, not the guy whose wife cheated. We read everything from Vonnegut to Atwood, and their discussions sharp, lively, full of ideas pull me out of my head. I'd sit in a cozy cafe, sipping coffee, debating the ethics of dystopian governments, and feel a flicker of hope, like I could be more than my pain. I even went on a date, a coffee meet-up with a librarian named Claire, whose dry humor made me laugh for the first time in months. We sat at Brew and Bloom, the irony not lost on me, and talked about books, her love for sci-fi, my obsession with historical fiction. She didn't ask about my past, didn't look at me with pity, and for an hour, I felt like Michael again, not the broken husband. It wasn't love, but it was a start, a reminder that I could feel something again, that I could smile without guilt. I'd catch myself enjoying these moments, then feel a pang, as if moving on was a betrayal of the life I'd lost. But I was tired of being defined by that loss, tired of being the guy whose wife cheated. I wanted to be Michael, teacher, runner, friend, not the husk Sarah had left behind. I started therapy on my own after we stopped couple sessions. Dr. Ellis helped me unpack the layers of pain, guilt, and anger. She asked hard questions. Why did I feel responsible for Sarah's choices? What did I want my life to look like now? I didn't have answers at first, but talking helped. I realized it defined myself through Sarah, through us. Her betrayal wasn't just a loss of love, it was a loss of identity. Who was I without her? I'm still figuring that out, but I'm starting to like the person I'm becoming. I'm learning to forgive, not for Sarah, but for me. I'm learning to trust again, to believe in love without checking for cracks. It's slow, messy work, but I'm getting there. Healing isn't linear. Some days, I'd find an old photo of us at a music festival, arms around each other. Rufus photobombed in the frame and the hurt would surge back, as fresh as the day I read her emails. I'd wonder if she was happy, if Liam was still in her life, if she ever thought of me. I'd walk past her clinic, my heart pounding, then hate myself for caring. I'd see a couple at the Rusty Lantern, laughing over beers, and feel a stab of envy, of loss. Other days, it'd feel lighter, like the weight was lifting. I'd laugh with Jean over a staff room joke, or lose myself in a lesson on reconstruction, or sit in my book club, debating dystopias, and feel like I was enough. I'd run along the river, the air crisp, the water reflecting the city's lights, and feel a spark of hope, a belief that I could rebuild. I don't hate Sarah, not really. I hate what she did, how she chose to break us instead of talking to me. I hate that she found something in Liam she couldn't find in me. I hate that I didn't see it coming, that I let myself believe we were untouchable. But I'm learning to let go, to forgive not for her, but for me. I'm finding pieces of myself I didn't know were missing, building a life that's mine, not ours. I'm learning to live with the scars, to see them not as wounds, but as proof I survived. Thank you for listening to my story. It's raw, real, and hard to tell. It's not just about betrayal, it's about the slow, painful work of rebuilding, of finding yourself when the life you knew is gone. It's about the quiet moments of resilience, the small victories that add up, the hope that lingers even after everything falls apart. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, or if you want to dive into more stories that cut to the heart of what it means to be human, subscribe to the End Stories channel. There's a world of experiences waiting, stories of love, loss, betrayal, and redemption. Each one a reminder that we're all navigating this messy, beautiful thing called life.